Alright guys, such good to be here back again today. Hope you're all enjoying your Friday and looking forward to the weekend. Apparently it's going to be a sunny one here in the UK, but stay home and stay safe, follow the guidance, all of that good stuff. Today, let's hop into this topic that I hinted at yesterday, Gunless for Dashy. It's pretty much become clear over the last few days that Dashy has been benched off this OpTic gaming team. Yes, it's the online league, but given that situation, seems very, very unlikely indeed, given the likely reasons that he has been benched, if that is indeed the case, but we have no official confirmation from OpTic Gaming Los Angeles. If that is indeed the case, very unlikely we're ever going to see him on this team again. If it's for the reasons that we expect, the attitude problems and these kind of things, or at least maybe him not getting on with the team, or Slasher not getting on with him, whatever the case may be, if he's dropped for whatever reason and been put on the bench, very unlikely we see him back. It's hardly like this team isn't going to work, and they go to Dashy, oh, mate, do you mind coming back into the squad? I think we were better with you. And he's going to be like, oh yeah, sound lads, no problem. He'll fit right in and, he's going to get on with the team better the second time around. That's not going to happen. This is one of those changes where it's like, if you make the change, this is cut and dry, it's effectively final. Difficult change to make, but if you're going to put Dashy on the bench, I highly doubt he's going to come back into the team, especially because, Chino has some history playing with Kenny and the like and having those good results in the early Team Caliber days in World War II, winning a couple of championships back-to-back. I think it was Nola and Dallas, I think at the start of that, they won both back-to-back. Think Chino got the MVP at the first one as well, so a little bit of a throwback Thursday there, even though it's Friday. But yeah, if that is indeed the case, what's next for Dashy, right? Because if we don't see him on OpTic Gaming Los Angeles again, we had this whole rumour at the start of the season that he wanted to be on the Chicago Huntsman team, and supposedly he even went to Scump and was like, yo, can you fiddle something somehow that I can get off OpTic Gaming onto the Chicago Huntsman? And at that time it was supposedly Gunless who he was like, oh, can we swap out and get me on the Chicago team? Of course, contracts don't exactly work like that, but in this situation, is that a legitimate possibility? We talked about Chicago, they're making these role changes. It could be argued that they're having some more chemistry issues, and some people keep kind of sending me clips every so often of things going a little bit wrong on stream, Gunless having a crack at his team, and maybe they're not getting on as well in terms of chemistry as they were at the start of the season. Of course, given they stream a lot, you're obviously going to get more clips like that than you would for another team. But we've kind of seen through Gunless throughout his career, that's maybe a bit of an issue. Could this change work? And if it doesn't work, where does Dashy go from here? What team does he end up landing on? Because of course he's way too talented not to find a team. He won a championship in Black Ops 4, and he was the MVP, one of the best performances we've ever seen at an event at that CDL Las Vegas. Let's hop into things here. Like if you guys enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Bit of a long intro. Just wanted to say quickly, given the current situation, very sad to see that Toronto Ultra, a lot of their content team, if not the entire thing, has been laid off given the current situation. Very sad to see, given that they put out some really, really good content over at the Ultra. But as you can see here, this article from ESPN that I'll leave links down below, they've all been released, including MattG, who you might know from Splice. He's now announced his departure a few days ago as well. I'm not sure if I talked about that at the time, but I definitely did see it on Twitter. So, disappointing to see. The team are looking for new direction, but clearly, in terms of the content game, not quite what we want to see from the Call of Duty perspective for sure. But let's hop right into this. Dashy said this a few days ago on Twitter, backstabbed so many times I started walking backwards. Pharaoh dropped off that 100 Thieves team at the start of last season in kind of similar circumstances. Says, I know that feel. Then Brandon replies to Scump, who then replies to this other tweet. And this gif kind of implies to me, like, damn, I wish I was on the Chicago Huntsman. Of course, it was kind of known that Dashy loved it. Of course, look, if you're on OpTic Gaming last season, you're going to be loving life. Everyone's loving you, calling you Bruce on main stage, all of this kind of stuff. And then, during the off-season, supposedly, the drama was that Dashy and TJ, whatever, signed on to OpTic Gaming, thinking that Scump would sign behind them, and that they would keep the OpTic Gaming thing going. However, then Hector and all that set up the Chicago Huntsman. Of course, Scump had formed with them, and Dashy was already locked into a contract where maybe he could have come along with if that wasn't the case. So I think this season didn't really get started on the greatest note, and then supposedly we had the whole behind-the-scenes stuff where Dashy was like, yo, can we swap out for Gunless? Is that a possibility? Didn't happen at the end of the day. Question really is this change even legit? So this is some of the thoughts on Reddit here. Like, where does Dashy even go? Seattle and New York? First of all, I don't even know if changes are particularly likely for the rest of the season, given that it's kind of easy just not to make changes, given it's online. Be like, well, the rest of the season's online, doesn't even matter. Let's just wait for next season, lock Dashy up on the team. the risk is, right, if you trade Dashy, he goes on to another team, and then that team starts to beat you, right? Because we know what a ceiling this guy has. Maybe it's easier just to keep him on the bench so no other team can get him, given a lot of these esports organizations seem to have just infinite money flowing around. But yeah, there's some thought process here, like should it go Seattle, New York? Some people have even talked about FaZe, right? Put him on FaZe instead of Major Maniac. That would be pretty unbelievable. Then again, I don't really see any reason to change what FaZe are doing right now. Like, do they need even more slaying power and cracked out talent on the team? I don't know. Like, yes, I would take Dashy over Major Maniac on, like, you know, if I just had to choose one over the other. But does that work in terms of team chemistry? Like, there's other factors at play, right? So I wouldn't, you know, do that in a heartbeat. But if FaZe start dropping off and don't have the greatest results online, is that something you consider doing if the option's on the table? Who knows? Then again, do OpTic gaming what Major Maniac? Is there history there between the players? Not really, right? So yeah, you've got to think of it from both sides. And that's why I wanted to talk about Gunless and Dashy here. Let me just share a 25-second clip where this really came from Nameless's podcast with Enable, where he talks about the possibility. Interestingly, someone mentioned, just listen to exactly the wording Pac-Man uses. I didn't even notice this at the time, so whoever it was that pointed this out to me, thanks very much. But what Pac-Man says here is not that we would never get rid of Dashy. He says that Chicago would never get rid of Gunless.
There's an issue in the team. It has nothing to do with the game. Like, sure, you guys suck right now and, you know, whatever. Like, you guys aren't working well together, but it's literally an attitude thing outside of the game, in my opinion. Like, if I get on every day and I don't want to play with my team,
Dashy for
like, we're not going to be good.
Dashy for Gunless at some point is going to happen this season.
Chicago's not getting rid of Gunless.
Just saying, it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, who, like...
So Nameless came out and said that that was his thinking. I think this was way back in like February time, maybe late February. So it's quite a while ago now before the whole situation has erupted. But still, an interesting change to consider, given that Dashy clearly wants to go onto that OpTic gaming team, or the Chicago Huntsman team, sorry. Still get those things confused in my head. Scump and OpTic are still synonymous in my mind. But yeah, seems like he clearly wants to go over there. But does this work for both parties? I think it's difficult to argue that it does. Let's have a look at some statistics here. First of all, just looking at Gunless on this Chicago Huntsman team right now. Yes, this is a winning team. They won the event in London, but Gunless hasn't really had the best stats so far. Scump and Envoy outperforming him, even though they're on the SMGs, and Gunless is more of a flexer. You would expect him to, if anything, been putting up slightly better numbers, but it depends on exactly the roles that are being played. Yesterday, we talked about how Arstes is looking to take the lead as an AR. So in this game, Gunless has kind of flexed in the past, but now he's pretty much being forced to use an SMG, not entirely in his comfort zone. But then again, in World War II with the PPSH, he was kind of dominant with that weapon at times. Now, let's not forget, Gunless hasn't been great so far this season, but in the last 3 seasons, Black Ops 4, at times on the Luminosity team, previously to that in World War II on Rise Nation, and then in Infinite Warfare on A United, he's been considered at one time or another probably the best player in the game, or at least very much up there. Luminosity last season, he was right up there as one of the best players when they had their period around Fort Worth. I'm not sure if he won MVP for that event, but he was on top form. Let's not forget about that. Then in World War II on Rise Nation, he was considered the best when Team Caliber and Kenny had that kind of drop off. And then in Infinite Warfare E United, early season, he was considered the best player when they beat OpTic at that Atlanta event. I'm pretty sure it was Atlanta, or maybe it was Dallas, one of the two. So regardless, Gunless is obviously a fantastic player. I've been a big fan of his playstyle, not necessarily his personality and the like, but he hasn't been so good this season. And then Dashy here on the OpTic gaming team, he's been using the AR, but then they did change things around, so the roles haven't quite updated on EasyMax spreadsheet here. Everything will be linked down below. Him for Slasher have kind of swapped, so Dashy's running more of a fast-paced SMG. Slasher now on the AR definitely makes a lot more sense. So if anything, they could kind of swap 1-for-1 in terms of roles, what Gunless and Dashy are using right now. So in that sense, is it a better move for Chicago on paper? Let's not even talk about chemistry. Let's leave that discussion for a couple of minutes time here. But on paper, does that work? Is Dashy a better pickup in terms of raw slaying ability? You know, possibly, but Gunless probably has, maybe he has more in his arsenal in terms of he can run more different weapons, and he's proven it over time. And I don't know, like Gunless has been around for a couple of years longer than Dashy, at least playing at the top level of Call of Duty, so it's really difficult to say in that sense. Like, previous seasons, before Dashy really came onto the scene, I would have had Gunless as a better player, but after last season in Black Ops 4, Dashy was obviously up there. So in terms of pure slaying power, is this a swap that you might want to make? Who knows? The issue is, right, you bring Dashy into this team, right now you're getting good slaying performances out of, let's just have a look at this, out of Scump and Envoy. You bring Dashy in for Gunless, and Dashy starts starts picking up more kills, because maybe he plays a slightly slower, more kill-centric role as he has done in the past than Gunless is right now, maybe playing a more, baity role on the team, you might start to get drop-offs in performance from Envoy and Scump. So I don't really think it's clear-cut in terms of the role dynamics. You don't necessarily want to just stack your team with a load of incredibly hard-working talent, in terms of, Dashy put him up at 1.1 or whatever he's planning to do, and because Gunless might be playing a role right now which doesn't really fit for that. And this is a team that's won, of course. So I wouldn't be jumping to make the change. But then you've got to look at the chemistry side of things, and of course then the other way round, bringing Gunless into the OpTic Gaming Los Angeles team, does that work as well? Like if you bring him in for, say, a J-Cap, maybe it does, but some people saying that apparently Gunless said on stream he never wants to team with Slasher again. But let's have a look at some results here. So this is Gunless teams back in the day. Let's not forget in the World War II days, played with Slasher on the Rise Nation team, won Seattle and won Anaheim back in that title. So obviously they'd have some good history together. But maybe after things all fell apart on this Rise Nation team in the latter half of the season, they don't want to team ever again, and maybe that's the Gunless situation, right? That tends to be in the latter half of seasons. He never gets on with his teammates super duper well, and the teams can fall apart, which we have seen in the past. So would Slasher want to team with him again? Like, he's played with TJ Halley before that Rise Nation team, but do they really want to bring him back? If they were to bring him in for Chino or Jacob or whatever, is that a move that makes sense both ways? I'm not really sure either team is too eager to have that situation occur. However, if you're a Chicago Huntsman right now, you may be legitimately concerned that Gunless's teams don't tend to have too much success past the first few months of them forming. After that, chemistry issues do tend to come to the fore. That's happened with Gunless pretty much in the last 3 years of Call of Duty. Does it happen again this year? I wouldn't put it out of the realms of possibility. So the possibility of, shipping Gunless off and bringing Dashy in, where Dashy's clearly excited to try and play with this team, that maybe wouldn't cause as many issues as a guy like Gunless potentially could. Maybe Chicago could make a fair case for that, right? So I definitely think in this situation, it's more about the chemistry than it is about the individual talent on the team, I would say. Just to look really quick here then at what Dashy's been up to the last couple of years. So, the World War II Enigma 6 team, where he had some great stats alongside Sensor then on the Complexity squad, then into OpTic Gaming, wins Las Vegas with a 1.4 or something outrageous at that event. Incredible performance from him. Rest of the year doesn't go so well for Dashy, and then we have the whole situation still playing with TJ right now. But if he could get back with Scump and play with Formula and get the fan base behind him again, I think he feels probably a little bit of a no man's land right now, given that he used to have all the support and he just comes into Call of Duty and gets gifted this spot. And not like he gifted it, he earned the spot right on OpTic Gaming. Comes in, all the supporters behind him, and now OpTic Gaming Los Angeles are pretty much like the most hated team in the league, right? So it must be really difficult for Dashy to go from one to another. Slash is used to this stuff, right? So I can imagine why Dashy feels kind of alienated in the team and wants to be on the Chicago Huntsmen. Does it work though for Chicago? Would this be a good move? Who knows? And of course it has to work both ways as well, and I don't think that's going to marry up at all. So I don't think this change is going to happen. On paper it's an interesting one though, but after that, where does Dashy go, right? If that is still left on the table. Be intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.